What's going on, everybody? How are all of you doing today? I'm doing pretty damn good. Still sore as a mother from yesterday, though. Keep getting them things where you find, like, every time you do something different, you find a new spot that's all stiff and sore. I love it. Pain is weakness leaving the body, so feels freaking great. But here we are. I got a special one today. I kind of bumped off what I was originally going to do because I got a little bit of insight from a fellow person in the crypto community from a different forum here I'll get into in a second. And I liked it so much, I asked dude, like, hey, you mind if I throw this in a video tonight? Because that is outstanding and it's something that gets talked about a lot. I've had this conversation with multiple people. And this is the Rebuttals to the Crypto Haters by, I don't know if I'll pronounce this right, but pede. I'm going there. Maybe not. Maybe I've read too much into that, but we'll see. And quote of the day real quick is, freedom is being you without anyone's damn permission. That is right. Man, I hope you guys can't hear that crazy ass noise. What the hell is that? Something squealing. Sounds like a fan or something. But again, this video is for people, you know, who tell you crypto is stupid or it's just a fad or a bubble and things like that. And we're going to get into some very, very good explanations from somebody who does know what they are talking about, at least as far as I could tell. And first, wanted to get into a couple things on the chart here. There was some stuff that has been happening lately that I saved on the chart that I wanted to throw at you guys here real quick. Little learning tidbits. So over here, you know, back before we had the big pump over here on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, we had this little situation that I've been noticing happen lately in certain places. And, you know, we were going up and we were getting, you know, like, we got the 4 impulse waves coming up, but then we start pulling back to the downside and it's kind of slow at first. And then we just got this little dip down before, you know, springing back up. And I mentioned it in the previous video a little bit too, but I circled this here and it's interesting to see this momentum wave, how we just curved right down and just spiked. It was like, it was almost like, you know, it knew ahead of time it was going to start pumping and people were like, all right, sell, wait, and just started buying up a little bit more. And then boom, just rocketed up, barely touched down in the red on the money flow here on the 12-minute, but you know, it did form like a little anchor and trigger wave right here. You got your little trigger, you got your little handle, your anchor wave right there. And it's just, I found it interesting, just the shape. And when I saw it starting to happen, I'm like, man, I wonder if it's gonna do that too. And you know, we kind of had it right here a little bit. We had it further back in a couple places, specifically after like a bunch of consolidation, and then, you know, jumped up a little bit of a level, and before taking off like in the main part of the pump, seemed like we were getting these like little wind-ups. And so I'm going to be keeping an eye out for them, and when we continue to see them in the future, you know, you get like little ones here, kind of a big one right there, but I hesitate to call that because it was more or less like a reversal. You know, we've got your higher low and stuff. And yeah, kind of so far, I predicted it was going to happen here too. I drew this thing out ahead of time and I just left it there as a reminder that I wanted to mention this. But over here, it's the other thing that I was going to mention. We had some bearish divergence at the time, and it made a decent little scalp trade out of it. You know, money flow was coming down, kind of confirmed that, started getting into a little bit steeper moves here on the RSI, but the money flow was the big one. We did have this like trending downward on the VWAP, but I was like, you know, okay, it was that one. I didn't put too much into it. And then when we started getting rejected off the zero line right there with the VWAP, I'm like, okay, we might have something here, because it was still going up and we were getting like a VWAP divergence on top of, you know, really short-term divergence, and then you had the big momentum wave ones going on right there. So just pointing things out that have been playing out a little bit here. You know, we do have some bearish divergence at the top of this guy. So had that going on. Still potentially playing out right now. We'll see. We came down, paused. Looking like we might have a bit of a turn. We'll see what happens here. VWAP got rejected last time. Quite likely to cross back up. Probably very likely, to be honest. And then, you know, money flow starting to curve back a little bit. Had a big split on the way down. And I saw this as we were coming up. RSI started splitting and it stopped right about here. You know, at the top of this momentum wave. The top of this guy right here. And then as we kind of weakened out, started kind of rolling the top over, going a little sideways, started coming back together before going into like a complete flip. Started heading down, and now we're getting split to the downside. So I'd say we still have some bullish pressure come up here on a higher time frame, and you can see we're still deep in the green. You know, we got this potentially another little trigger wave, and I almost hate to call it that, but you know, we are coming up down here, and we did have, where are we at, 15? You know, we did have a little trigger wave here, which is interesting for how much separation we had. And if you were to extrapolate this guy out, you know, potentially money flow maybe curving back along that. We shall see. It's low right now, though. You know, RSI looks like it still could continue to the downside. Obviously, we have lower highs right there. You know, DBSI on these time frames is still looking rather bearish. Little momentum rejection, VWAP coming down. So, you know, we may be seeing a little retracement for a little bit, which is why I left this fib retracement up. It was actually a trend-based fib retracement, if I remember right. No, okay, that was a regular one. But back when this was the top still, drew it, ended up hiding it over here, went and unhid it, just out of curiosity to see what was going on. And I'm like, oh, you know, well, I actually kind of played out because I turned it off, but we did have a level that was like right here. And we did hit off of this level, so we'll see. We'll see if we come back to the golden pocket. I'll probably, you know, just out of curiosity. Okay, looks like we already came to it. If we go full up to the peak right here. Good chance maybe we come off of the 6.5, at which point we could have higher lows. If it wants to continue up, I mean, we have been up for quite a while. Wouldn't surprise me if we cooled off for a little while. Coming up on this outer Gann square ring too, so we'll see what's going on. It's going to be it'll be a telling evening into tomorrow. But all right, let's get into the main meat and potatoes here. And this guy's post, it was over on communities.win. If you're not familiar, it's basically all the banished children of Reddit who were like, F you, gave them the middle finger. They went off. They started their own like Reddit alternative, basically. And it's pretty much one of the only social media places I even go anymore. But this guy had an awesome post on there called Setting the Record Straight, Why Pede Should Embrace Crypto by, I'm assuming it's Boricua Pede. I don't know if I'm insinuating a little bit of a Spanish accent in there and you're not, my bad. But that's kind of what it looks like. So I don't know what to tell you. All right, he says, you know, I want to address some of the misconceptions floating around this forum and other conservative spaces about crypto. As someone heavily involved both in the development of several projects and in mining, DeFi, etc., I believe crypto is one of the biggest tools we have today to maintain freedom and autonomy in our financial and daily lives. I see a lot of suspicion about it here, and comments that suggest people have not looked deeply into it or have an outdated understanding. So, in no particular order, here are some things to ponder. Objection. Bitcoin has no intrinsic value like my gold. Bitcoin has intrinsic value for the same reason your gold does. It's rare, irreplaceable, non-inflatable, and it has a finite supply. It has locked within it trillions of dollars of investment in mining equipment and energy. Nobody who owns Bitcoin will accept less than what it's worth for it because someone will always pay it. Good point. And, and on top of this one, I would also add in there, he did say non-inflatable, but yeah, the limited supply, which I've heard people all, kind of rebut that one by saying, well, what does it matter if it has a limited supply if nobody wants it? I think it's pretty friggin' clear at this point that plenty of people want it, and we're not even getting into utility or anything like that. I mean, just as like a store of value asset. I mean, at this point, so many big players are invested. Yes, they could all just decide to collude together and just flat out dump it and destroy it. But even still, there's plenty who wouldn't, not to mention, all of the retail, which, yeah, some of them are going to FOMO on the downfall a little bit and just panic sell. But it doesn't matter. If it ends up finding a fair market value at lower than what it's at right now, then that's what it is. Odds are it's still going to eventually come back up, even if it's solely based on retail buying alone, because there are enough people who care more about the crypto space than just watching the price, perma pump. But all right, next one. Objection. The government can just shut down, seize my Bitcoin. Yeah, no the F they can't. I love it when people try to argue this one with me. The government can blacklist your wallet address from interacting with fiat off-ramps, i.e. a licensed exchange or a bank where you sell it for fiat money, aka their control system. There are dozens of ways around this, such as washing your Bitcoin or using a VPN or going to another country or keeping it as a store of value and not cashing out at all. It is literally impossible to seize Bitcoin. This is correct. I mean, unless you would have to physically give them your, your seed phrase, your keys. Now, granted, yeah, they could get it off your computer if you store it on your computer somewhere, or God forbid on a freaking cloud storage without at least some kind of password protection or encryption, which please don't do that. I mean, you wouldn't store your friggin' bank account on your computer out in the open for anybody to hack into it. So it's the same thing. It's, if you owned a bank, you would not leave it unprotected. Well, that is what your crypto wallet is. It is your bank. Objection. Bitcoin's value is purely imaginary. It's only backed by people's faith in it, like fiat money. This objection makes sense unless you understand the concept of the blockchain. The blockchain is an information processing tool. There are many blockchains that do many things. Bitcoin was one of the first successful ones, and the actual Bitcoin token was created as a proof of concept. Blockchains have real-world applications and are the future of information processing, managing, and handling. Everything from websites and apps to property deeds and tax records to insurance contracts and music and movies, anything that works with ones and zeros, binary, is moving into the blockchain. This is in itself intrinsic value. Yeah, I mean, when you get into smart contracts and think, there's plenty of projects all doing the same thing, but when you look at the actual, call it genres of projects, when you get into things like VeChain with the supply chain blockchain integration, I mean, that's a huge one. I can't even imagine that the industry is not going to go that direction. Now, keep in mind, I've worked in various industries, and it takes forever for companies to update their processes, to update their software, because it's ridiculously expensive and time consuming. Things get fucked up in the process because, you're changing over from one to the other. Things get lost, get mixed up. You got people not making enough money who just, you know, don't give a you know what, and that happens. But the fact that we've already seen as much as we have with large companies starting to adopt blockchain solutions, I think is a really good sign. And as more do it, like case in point being Walmart with VeChain. And now I know it's not Walmart around the whole world, but still, yeah, that's a big one. And then you also get into like the smart contract situation, and I can see insurance companies and titles and deeds and all that stuff going the way of smart contracts and NFTs. So we're still in the baby stages, you know. It's like we're past the embryo, we're past the gestation period where it's been born and it's still just a little baby. I mean, it's, you know, when people say that if you're getting into it right now, because a lot of people wonder like, am I too late? Did I miss all the money and things like that? As much as it's easy to think that when you've been following it for say a year now or something, especially the last year or two, but in reality, I mean, this is still a very new technology. And you think about the internet itself, and when the dot-com bubble was really, really going, I mean, it had already been around for a significant amount of time. And yeah, you know, Bitcoin's been around for a little while too, but as far as popularity and adoption and things like that, we're still baby steps. All right, next one. So objection. The government can turn off the blockchain. It depends on the blockchain. Some, like Bitcoin, are somewhat vulnerable because mining at present uses a tremendous amount of energy, and governments can target users who are consuming unusual amounts of energy. Same thing they do with people that used to be growing weed. It's system's already in place. But Bitcoin is not the only blockchain. Many use almost no energy at all. The Stellar Consensus Protocol, which is being adopted by banks worldwide, does everything the Swift network does and more. And it can run on a little Raspberry Pi. There are forks of it running on cell phones. The only way to shut off every blockchain would be to shut off every computer, you know, and every server and the entire internet. That is why distributed ledger, that's the point of the distributed. You know, you take one node off and big whoop. Objection, I can't use crypto in the real world. False. There are already crypto debit cards that are indistinguishable from normal fiat debit cards. They swipe and work the same way, but they're not tied to any name or SSN. I'm still in the process of looking into this one. Definitely going to make a video about that. I just haven't gotten around to it yet because just haven't been pulling money out. I've just keep reinvesting, you know, just putting it back in whatever I make. I've just keep trying to build it up. Objection, crypto can't work without the internet. This is simply not true. There are already offline wallets for many projects, including Monero. The little dongle keeps an offline record of every transaction and lets you spend offline to whatever limit you have. Then you reconnect when you can, and it reconciles your transactions with the blockchain. Blockchain data is exquisitely light. You can easily square up with a couple seconds of cell phone or Wi-Fi. That one is interesting. I actually did not know that about the offline transactions squaring up and stuff. I'm absolutely going to look into that, and I will make a video about that one because that is actually pretty important. Objection, the government can turn off the internet and crypto goes poof. Not only is this not true, it is becoming irrelevant. The government controls the internet through its power to control the companies running the infrastructure and DNS records. There are already hugely successful projects like Helium and others that rely on networks of low power radio frequencies and have nothing to do with the public internet. The blockchain itself will replace DNS for hosting and information exchange as we move into the IPv6 future. That's the new version of IP addresses. The blockchain is decentralized. There is no off button for it. There is no way to know what data is being transmitted. There are any number of ways to transmit it. You can even send data as sound through shortwave radio relays, etc. The data genie is out of the bag. People are using crypto in North Korea where there is no access to internet, not normal internet, by picking up the signal from South Korea and Hawaii. that is super cool. I'm actually going to look into that one too. Did not know that. I know a decent amount about some of the little underground stuff going on in North Korea, and it fascinates me, but didn't know about that one. So that's kind of cool. Plus, if anybody is familiar with mesh nets, awesome topic. Not terribly related to this channel, so I just haven't really talked about it, but I've been playing around with making my own little mesh network and even getting the LoRa 32 boards and all that good stuff. Accidentally fried one, but you know, try too hard sometimes. But it's an interesting thing, and I was thinking the same thing, that you could probably do you know, transactions over meshnet, because basically it's like a text messaging network that doesn't use any actual cell phone network. So you can do it from your cell phone, send text messages to people nearby to you, and like depending on how many people are on that mesh network, it extends further and further and further out, and messages will travel from your phone to the next one's phone to the next phone to the next phone until it gets to the intended recipient. And so, you know, if shit hit the fan and they turned off the cell networks on everybody, if people had, you know, mesh network apps and even these little receivers give you a lot more distance, yeah, it wouldn't matter. Objection. Crypto is being co-opted by the system. No, the system realizes that the blockchain is inevitable and is making use of it too. They can only control their own blockchains and forks. For instance, the exchange company Binance forked Ethereum to make their own network, you know, Binance Smart Chain. Of course, they control that one, but you could also fork Ethereum yourself and make your own network. Very much true. I programmed my own Bitcoin, you know, testnet literally on the computer I'm on right now. Crypto is a shadow project of the Rothschilds to control your value, and one day they'll use secret NSA backdoors to shut it down. No, every major crypto project is 100% open source. You can download the code for any crypto and read it yourself. Run your own node, test it. It is written by volunteers around the world, people like me and others who donate our spare time to write and test code. There is literally nothing more conservative or libertarian than this system. There is no central body, no governing organization, no secret. If the NSA somehow slipped the back door into the code of a crypto, the community would identify it and delete it before the code was ever allowed to leave the repository and distribute to all the nodes and authenticators on the network. Yeah, that one is it's an interesting conversation, and I get it's kind of hard to argue if you really don't know a lot, because you know it's essentially the big bad boogeyman's controls everything argument, and since I mean in many cases they do, it's a tough one to argue. But in the case of this, you know, you do have to keep in mind the open source I don't know, process that is behind, you know, a lot of crypto. And it's, yeah, a lot of communities. Now there are a bunch of stuff that is not open source and whatever, but I mean, are they really going to be doing that for certain networks and chains and tokens and stuff? They want their CBDC, and they're probably going to try to do something to discourage people and move them from regular crypto to the CBDC. But I don't know. I circle back to the cat's out of the bag thing at this point. I don't think it's going to work for crypto people. Now, for normies who get, you know, pushed off onto the digital Fed coin or whatever the hell it's going to be, yeah, no, they're going to jump all over it, because it is just like, you know, Bitcoin and other crypto right now. It is a superior alternative. Problem is, to normal people, don't get me wrong, it's still, you know, cash is king and all that good stuff. Anything that has anonymity is the way that it should be, because we all know nanny state track and trace. It's ridiculous. But objection. My precious metals are better than crypto because they are tangible assets. I get this one a whole lot. Precious metals have their place, but let's say you have to bug out for El Salvador today. How would you get that gold on the boat or plane? If you have Bitcoin, you just memorize your seed phrase, and when you show up in El Salvador, your stash is already there and it's legal tender. Crypto is amazing because it's global. Then let's say El Salvador goes back to a full hellscape again. No rushing to change your Bitcoin to something else before they inflate it away. Just leave. As many have discussed here, the world does not all go to hell at once. There's always somewhere to go. Crypto is absolute freedom to come and go without having to rely on the world system of banking or money. And this is a very good point, because I have personally heard stories from people that I've talked to, fleeing some of these communist hellholes, and they absolutely shake you down on the way out. Unless you're like sneaking out or getting smuggled out, like they absolutely shake people down. They will take anything of value that you have. And it essentially works as like a bribe to get out of there, because that's, these officers, police officers or soldiers or military officers, that's kind of their side hustle at that point, because they're not getting shit. They all know it. They could be thrown away, at the flip of a switch. But hey, other places in the world, dude, everything's dirty. Everything's run on bribes. Like, people in the US here have no idea like how good we have it in so many respects, because they have this rose-colored goggles, thinking the whole world works the way this place does, and they don't realize that out there in the rest of the world, there are real wolves everywhere. What'd that movie say? Voracious wolves. But objection: the NSA already has backdoors in the computers/chips you use to run the networks. The NSA is not almighty. It can't be everywhere. Backdoors always leave clues. A few years back, the NSA slipped a backdoor into some Dell servers that were shipped to South America. When one was used to mine Monero, the developers instantly noticed that the processor was calling home with information about the hashing. A quick patch to the core code fixed that. Last year, Nvidia hobbled their best new graphics card to keep people from mining Ethereum and Raven. Literally the day they came out, people started finding ways to defeat it. Within a matter of weeks, they were getting almost full performance from them. Today, Nvidia admits their throttling chip has been a failure. Mining goes on. Now, my counsel for the pede community is twofold. One, learn the difference between coins and blockchains. The coins are to the blockchains as the stock is to the companies in the real world. I'm sure most people watching this channel already know this. But, when you're talking to people about it, be sure to make that distinction, because everybody thinks that it's just the, the Bitcoin or the Ethereum token that is what all the hoopla is about. When in reality, we're talking about big projects, big companies, big movements. It's not just all meme coins. And two, start investing in at least some crypto. It is freedom. No matter what the ship of fools in Washington do, your crypto is not doomed to inflation the way your fiat is. And the fiat absolutely is. I've brought up the money supply chart on this channel a couple of times. It is ridiculous. And they just put out a new spending bill, government budget. And if you go over to Zero Hedge, shout out to Zero Hedge if you're not using them. Really good news site that does focus on financial markets quite a bit as well. They have an article out where they literally broke down all the spending in that bill. Each one has links going back to that section, and I didn't read the whole thing. It's freaking ridiculously long, but it is broken up into like categories and stuff like that. So if you want to see where your inflata money's going, you could go check that out. It's a lot of it is fairly frustrating. But yeah, this precious metals are better than crypto because they're tangible assets. I think I've gotten that rebuttal the most with me talking about crypto, and it usually comes from people who are generally like-minded to myself, and I'm sure most of you out there. People who are not big fans of big government, who don't believe in fiat money. They know it's just monopoly funny money, and it's going down the tubes as we speak. But even those people who are generally I should say, forward-looking, preparedness-minded people, self-reliant to a degree. You know, they say the same thing, like, you know, I'll stick with my my gold and silver and everything. And I'm like, you know, everything has pros and cons. And, you know, some people say, well, okay, you know, if the dollar collapses, if something happens, you know, the shit hits the fan, people have, you know, this innate belief that you'll be able to go down to the local swap meet after things calm down a little bit, and you'll be able to trade your silver for food or bullets or whatever it might be. And that is a very, very subjective thing. Because you know, the people who are selling their things most likely have to not be super hungry. Because if they're super hungry, they're not going to want anything but food. And, you know, maybe the marketplace itself, somebody's going to have to almost be like a banker or a money changer, because, you know, as long as somebody is able to exchange some value for that silver, you know, if you trade, you know, a bunch of silver dollars to some dude for a bunch of beef or a cow or something like that, then, you know, they have to know in their head that they can get something for that silver, which means everybody has to accept it as a medium of exchange. And in a situation like that, most people aren't going to give a damn about, you know, gold or silver. They need stuff. Because let's face it, most people are not, you know, keeping things stocked up. They're not preparing. They're not self-reliant. They're living in suburbs and cities. People don't have gardens. And then people say, like, okay, well, you know, okay, your crypto doesn't fit in that category either. Well, yeah, I'm not saying it does, but I'm just saying that, you know, everybody attaches this automatic value to gold and silver as like a hedge against inflation, a hedge against a collapse, a black swan event or something like that. And it really only is as long as there is some modicum of a market left. You know, if it's straight up, if we're down to straight up barter, you know, only somebody who's not starving and doesn't have the prospects of starving is really going to accept any large amount of gold or silver. And gold, by the way, is really, nobody's going to give you change. So it's going to be hard to buy stuff with gold when it's, you know, it might be worth, you know, 20 times what it is right now in a situation like that. So if you got, you know, 1 gold ounce and that thing's worth, you know, 100 grand, you know, what are you buying for 100 grand that you really need at that moment? Unless you're buying like some horses or something like that to get around. But yeah, so that's a tough one. So word of caution on that tip. But as far as a hedge against inflation, it should be. But the, you know, the gold and silver market is so damn manipulated at this point that, I mean, it should have already been doing significantly better than it is at the moment. Matter of fact, here's silver. Let's come up on the daily. You know, we did have a little bit of an increase, but, you know, you look at, let's do the weekly chart here. You know, you look at the situation throughout COVID and everything. Yeah, we had the COVID dip like everything else, but we've basically been sideways prior to that. And then it did shoot up a little bit. And yeah, I remember when, you know, silver ounces were going for 33, 34. But we still just generally kind of reached like a new fair market value for a little while, just kind of going sideways from there. But, you know, despite all of the inflation going on, everything with COVID, lockdowns, businesses closing, all that stuff, you know, you would think that this would have been like at least generally trending up. And keep in mind, there is way more paper silver being traded and exchanged than there is real silver. And I'm not going to get into how that whole market works, but essentially it is just heavily manipulated. And golden goose, huh? And even though gold has been going up, but it's kind of going up with inflation. It's about generally close to the same rate. But then when you come, we had the little uptrend during the beginning of COVID, but same thing as silver, actually pulling down a little bit. And we're kind of getting some curvature going here now. So we'll see what happens, but definitely not indicative of what everybody always says it should be. You get, what's that one dude? Peter Schiff or something? The dude who's always super bullish on gold. And you listen to these people and you would think that, what their kind of doomsday scenario, they're always saying that gold is the greatest for. You'd think it should be doing this at a time when it's doing exactly, what they've been saying. And we did have it for a little bit, but there's that manipulation. So we'll see. We are coming up in the money flow a little bit, but it's not super steep. See what happens. But as far as crypto, the other thing that I tend to hear the most is, it's not going to be worth anything when the power goes out. And there's the simplest reply to anybody who says that to you, and that is, neither is your dollar. Neither is your credit card, neither is your debit card, neither is every stock you have ever purchased, every ETF. And even worse than that, most stores, if the power goes out, won't even let you buy anything because, everything's digital. The cash registers, the debit card swiper thing. Nobody's doing an imprint of your card anymore where they put it in that little machine and get the what is that carbon paper underneath it. Yeah, nobody has that shit anymore. So it's just, you can make any argument for either side that you really want, and people are just going to do what they want to do. People are hard-headed. They don't like change. They don't like to think that maybe what they've thought, their whole lives might not be right. And you get a lot of people too who are just not technologically adept. So the whole concept of this crypto thing, to them, it makes no sense. They think it's the equivalent of like a JPEG picture, that people are like, okay, yeah, maybe it's an encrypted JPEG picture and there's really nothing behind it. There's nothing, there's no security. They hear about, a bunch of Bitcoin got stolen or hacked or this or that. And so they really have no idea what it's about. And it just sounds like risky as hell to them because that's all they ever hear from, mainstream media establishment sources. And there's a lot of well-known financial industry people that are fairly good on other subjects that, speak ill of Bitcoin and crypto, that I get where they're coming from. and in some cases I'll say, there is a warranted like a word of caution in it, because it could go to zero. It could every country in the world could ban the exchanges. Never going to change the utility of it, but just like everything else in life, it could go away. So keep that in mind. They always say, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your hopes and dreams and aspirations and your future entirely on, Bitcoin and crypto. But that the main thing that I say and that I tell people is, why would you not use any tool available to you to better your life? Why not? Like, it is one of the better options for making money that is available to anybody right now. It's the easiest to get into. It is fairly easy to use and to do. Now, the strategy and all that stuff, yeah, that part takes some skills, some experience, some knowledge. But even just, you know, DCAing, just dollar cost averaging and just long-term hodling is super crazy freaking easy. It really is. Like, people could buy themselves, you know, just little stacks of Bitcoin here and there, dollar cost average, way easier than they're going to, you know, buy stocks. Not counting like Robinhood and that BS, but so why wouldn't you take advantage of it? That's my biggest point. Everybody says, oh, it's gonna go to zero, or, you know, some solar flare is gonna fry all the computers, or this or that, and it's all gonna be gone. And I'm like, so why shouldn't I try to make as much as I can before then? Because every dollar that I can make off of it in the meantime is more money you have to buy gold or silver, if that's what you want to do. Or, you know, throw some storable food in the corner just for a rainy day, rainy month, rainy year. And I don't know, that just improve your standard of living a little bit. You know, build yourself some cushion so you don't have to worry about, well, if your company goes out of business or you get fired or something or laid off, and it takes you a couple months to get a new job. You know, wouldn't it be nice to have that cushion to get you through an emergency like that? Like, not every emergency has to be a friggin' hurricane or a financial collapse. I mean, regular emergencies happen every day. That's why they have 911, and it's always, you know, ringing off the hook, because shit happens. You know, car accident, whatever it might be, medical bills. I mean, shoot, there's infinite reasons why you would want to try to make as much money as you can, particularly in a method that is, you know, it's the hardest easy way to make money, they say about trading. You know, it's tough to learn, it's tough to get it right, it's tough to be profitable, but it's very easy to do, like physically. You know, especially with like Bybit, Femex, OKX, and all that. You could set up an account like that right now. Boom, done. Transfer over some, you know, some USDC or something, or some Tether, and bam, you're rolling. Or you could buy it on those exchanges too. But honestly, I don't know. I have a private bank, so sometimes it doesn't work with. It's been a while since I tried, but sometimes it doesn't work with those payment processors, because it's not like a big Chase Manhattan or Wells Fargo or some shit like that. Some crooked bank always getting caught money laundering and human trafficking and all that good stuff. But all right, I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope this was interesting, and by all means, if you're still watching, I would love to hear from people. I love talking to people in the community. You know, people always have interesting insights, you know, things that maybe you hadn't thought of before, or it just new ways and perspectives of looking at things. So by all means, you know, if you have an interesting insight or anything like that, just good ideas or something, you know, shout it out, hit me up down in the comments, or you can send me an email. The email is on the About page on the YouTube channel. You know, love to hear from you, love to talk to you guys. And I am working up, trying to find, I want to start doing some interviews with people, and not even necessarily like other YouTubers, because everybody kind of does that. And yeah, we all hear from, you know, the various YouTubers and, you know, interviewing each other and all that good stuff. But honestly, I would almost rather start out interviewing just regular traders, you know, people who are out here who are grinding it out, who might be struggling with trading, or who are starting to do better with their trading. Like in the case of this guy, I'm probably going to ask you, if you're still watching, hey, let me know if you'd be interested in something like that. You know, you have a very interesting perspective that most people don't have, being in relation to the industry here a little bit. Not to mention, I've dabbled around with it myself, not working for anybody, but so I'd be curious just to talk about it, have somebody to talk about it, because not many people are out here doing programming and stuff. But all right, everybody have a fantastic day. Remember, stay free, stay happy. Life's too short to be stressed out. And it shall be called crypto. And free for all. Yep, Little Wolf says hi. All right, later.